Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah. May I call you Omar, if that's okay with you?
Go ahead.
Thank you for sparing the time. I understand it's a very busy time for you. Why Gandarbal and Budgam? Why two constituencies?
Probably because I think it's important after what happened in the Baramulla parliamentary election for the party to show that we are a winning party and that we can win even in sort of difficult circumstances. Budgam was part of Baramulla parliamentary constituency when I lost. So I think that's an important part of it. And Gandarbal I've represented as an MLA for 6 years when I was Chief Minister.
Everybody.
My grandfather, my grandmother, my father. So it was a natural choice.
So you don't want to leave one, but you want both. You want to contest from both.
I want to win both.
But was that a sense of insecurity?
No.
No.
No, in fact, it's the opposite.
Okay.
It comes from wanting to show that we can win a seat, an assembly. Look, I can't fight the Baramulla parliamentary seat again, but I can at least fight a part of that Baramulla seat, just to show that this is not what it's all about.
Okay. Yesterday I saw a visual which for me it came as a surprise. I've seen your campaigning over the years when you took off your cap in Gandarbal and said, vote for me, you know, my izzat and things. That was a different kind of an Omar compared to a couple of years ago. What's changed?
I'm older. I'm older. I'm less given to sort of angry campaigns. I think it's also reflective of the sentiment in this election. And it's not about, I mean, when I talk about respect, when I talk about that feeling, it's not just about mine. It's about the entire Jammu and Kashmir, which feels that their voice was disrespected, that their voice wasn't heard, that nobody has bothered to give any sort of ear to their sentiment and feeling. And this election is about seeking to restore some of that lost respect, or that respect that was taken from us. So what I did was perhaps symbolic of this fight being about that respect. It's about everybody's caps, it's about everybody's turbans, it's about everybody's respect. And that's what National Conference is fighting for.
But you're not given to making emotional appeals. You're not, at least in the past, you haven't been. It's
well,
more your dad's
that's
style,
sort of been
right?
that's sort of been used against me. That I'm almost robotic, that I'm unemotional, that I don't connect. So I mean, that's not actually who I am. I mean, obviously we all have emotions at various levels.
But you're not that kind. You don't exhibit them, at least. You're not. I mean,
yeah, that as somebody today reminded me that my father is Kashmiri, my mother is British, and sometimes the sort of stiff upper lip British side wins over, which is perhaps the wrong side.
At least in Indian politics.
It's yeah, I mean, politics is about emotion, and more so this one. I mean, this election is taking place on the back of so much that has happened to Jammu and Kashmir. So it's just, I mean, it wasn't planned, it wasn't thought about, it wasn't discussed, it wasn't sort of war roomed or war gamed or anything like that. It's just something that happened. It was spontaneous, and that's it.
So this, what we saw was Engineer Rashid standing against you when it was Lok Sabha. Now you have that Freedom Chacha, Azadi Chacha, Sarjan Barkati.
Has he filed?
That's what people are saying, that he will
I haven't heard whether he's filed yet.
So if everybody seems to be saying that several candidates will be fighting against you in order.
No, isn't it? I mean, you know, Engineer Rashid was I mean, I would have put it down as a coincidence. I would have put it down as maybe the natural choice, because Engineer had fought in 19 as well. Engineer had in the past been an elected MLA from the area. I mean, I don't know whether Barkati has filed yet. But if he does, then how come? Why Gandarbal? What is the connect? then questions start sort of creeping up. Was engineer all that it appeared to be? Or was this part of some grander design? I don't know. Let's see.
Is there?
I don't know. Well, look, so at the moment, Barkati is a rumor.
Okay.
It's a rumor that got a little bit of credence with a couple of national newspapers splashing it as the gospel truth. But we only have a couple of hours more for nomination filing. It's now almost 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
Nominations close at 3. So in 3 hours we'll know whether Barkati has filed or not. And if he has, so be it. We'll deal with it.
I'm going to quote a statement of yours from 2024 July, where you said the people of J&K deserve better than a powerless rubber stamp CM who will have to beg the LG to get his or her peon appointed.
They do. They absolutely do.
So now when
the step to that, look, we are not talking about the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir right now. We're talking about the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir.
Correct. So
right.
if you...
And this is not the Assembly we want. This is not the Assembly we deserve. But this Assembly will lead to that Assembly. Now, I understand, and this is where perhaps in politics it's always better to leave wiggle room. I was emphatic about not fighting the elections, and my first instinct was not to. But people whose wisdom I respect, people whose judgment I respect, and even strangers, strangers who have found my email address and written to me, strangers who have come across my telephone number and sent me messages on WhatsApp saying that, look, I'm a voter. If you don't trust the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, how are you going to ask me to vote for it? If this Assembly isn't good for you, why is it good for me? Why is it good for your colleagues but it's not good for you? And that actually caused me to sit back and think, they're right. If I don't believe in the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, then I have no business asking the people of Jammu and Kashmir to vote for that Assembly. Now, I'm not satisfied with this Assembly. This Assembly in no way reflects what the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir should look like. But if we just go by the commitments of the Prime Minister and the Home Minister in the Parliament of India, then this Assembly will lead to statehood. Statehood will lead to some sort of restoration of the respect that we feel was snatched away from us. So again, I make the point that this Assembly is not the one we want. This is a disempowered Assembly. But it is an Assembly that will lead to the Assembly that we want.
So are you happy with the choice that you made to fight the election now?
Yes.
Okay. The abrogation of 370, that was a watershed moment. It has upset political equations to a large extent because one is seeing so many independents who are fighting the election. Do you see this as a natural effect?
No, but when didn't you see independents fighting?
But so many of them?
So many of them. And not the last government, but in the 2002 government, if you remember, when Mufti Saab formed an alliance with the Congress, if I'm not mistaken, there were at least 14 or 16 independent MLAs at that time. And I know this for a fact because they were offering their support to us as well, who were then kept in the Lalit Hotel and then became part of the Mufti Sayyid government. I think out of those 14, 15, at least 12 were ministers for a while. But now so you've had independents here.
And the mushrooming of
what is changing? Yes, some mushrooming of political outfits, but to a large extent, the parliament elections has queried the pitch for them. Let's take, for example, the party that was given so much importance by Delhi, the Apni party of Altaf Bukhari. PDP virtually fell apart and sort of reformed in the form of Apni party. Today, Apni party has almost nobody.
That's crashed and burnt.
Well, literally, they lost their deposit in both the parliament seats that they fought.
Yeah. What went wrong with them? What, in your opinion, was...
I don't think the people of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly Kashmir, are ready to take any party that is born from a relationship with the BJP.
So they are still the shaitan, the untouchable, the BJP in Kashmir?
Look, I don't like using words like shaitans and untouchables because they're not the right words to use. I don't think any political party or any political opponent should be disrespected like that. So no. I'm not going to use that and give somebody a headline that Umar calls BJP shaitan. That's not my language and it never would be. But yes, their political ideology and ours does not meet. There is no meeting ground between what the BJP wants for Jammu and Kashmir and what parties like mine want for Jammu
But
and Kashmir.
Several times you've been with them, whether you, your father.
Yes, but those were different. That was a different BJP. That was a BJP that talked about Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat, Kashmiriyat. That was a BJP whose Prime Minister went to the LOC and said we can change our friends but we can't change our neighbors, and that Pakistan will always be a neighbor and therefore we need to look to normalize relations. That was a BJP whose Prime Minister got into a bus and went to Minar-e-Pakistan.
And yet the country got a bloodied nose after that with Kargil. So
yeah, but then we also bounced back from that.
Was it pragmatic to do that?
Of course it is. I mean, your neighbors are not going to change. We got bloody noses even after Prime Minister Modi descended surprisingly for a wedding there. We got bloody noses after he invited Nawaz Sharif for his swearing in.
So he too had rose-tinted glasses
True,
on.
But again, your neighbors are not going to change. All you can do is try and change their attitudes towards you. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting that we can slip into a dialogue right this moment. But if somebody can tell me there is an alternative to trying to normalize relations, I'm more than willing to listen.
Because it's there even in your manifesto. You talk about normalizing relations and opening a dialogue. Your father has also mentioned that there is no option but to talk to Pakistan in order for peace to be there in Jammu and Kashmir. Is that still the case? Do you still feel that? Because it kind of gives muscle to Pakistan to have the Abdullahs all the time talk about the fact that without talking to Pakistan, normalcy cannot come in. That's okay.
Well, Pakistan hates us. When has Pakistan ever liked the National Conference or the Abdullahs? No political party has been targeted more by the terror in Jammu and Kashmir than the National Conference. This office you are sitting in has seen thousands of our colleagues killed during the course of militancy. So let's not make this mistake of assuming that Pakistan is well disposed either towards my family or towards the party that I belong to.
But at this point of time, nobody is talking about Pakistan other than your dad.
No, actually a lot of people are talking about it, but you don't take as much notice of them as you do of him.
Okay, it's the media?
No,
that
not just the media, but obviously you guys have a narrative that needs to go out, and it helps to have somebody at least that can be bashed on the head.
He's the one who speaks all the time about it, right? He's the one who speaks about foreign affairs.
One.
About foreign affairs, you hardly hear Mehbooba talking about it. It's you.
Well,
or
that's surprising. I would have thought it would be something that she would be have pretty strong feelings about as well. But if she doesn't, then that's something only she can answer for.
This election, when you're campaigning, when you go around, when you're listening, watching, do you feel that things have changed? Because now there's no longer any slogans about Azadi, Khud Mukhtari, which used to be there earlier.
No, Khud Mukhtari is very much a slogan. It was a slogan in the parliament election. It was a slogan that was used, maybe not as resoundingly as in Engineers 19 election, but it wasn't absent from the election stage. A lot of the AIP's campaign at that time was about plebiscite, was about Jammu and Kashmir not being an integral part of India, was about a solution beyond the four walls of the constitution. So it's not completely silent.
And that desire for secession is still very much around, or is it muted for fear?
Well, you don't hear it as much. Now, why it's muted can only be explained by those who used to speak about it. Now, the National Conference is a political party that, for whatever disagreements you may have with us, has never looked for a solution beyond the four walls of the constitution. We have always said that whatever happens in Jammu and Kashmir must flow from the constitution. So it's not for me to answer why those voices that were in disagreement with us are now heard far less than they used to be.
Are they biding their time, you feel?
I again can't say. I can't say. Look, I can't say whether there's been a change of heart or this is just a temporary phase. Again, that's only something they can answer.
Because anybody we speak to, they say that in Kashmir, peace or the lack of this talk of Azadi is a tenuous situation. you never know when it could erupt. Is that the case?
I wouldn't discount what they're saying. I wouldn't. I think history and our experience in Jammu and Kashmir has taught us that more often than not, a calm is a tenuous one. But the longer this goes on, the better.
See, before this election, before the 2024 Lok Sabha election, every election, there was one section which used to say that those who are taking part in the election are Indian agents. You got dubbed, the NC gets dubbed very easily on that. Did you see a reduction of that kind of conversation happening, and are you seeing it in this election?
Well, actually, those who were saying this are today themselves willing to come forward and participate in elections. So that again cannot be a bad thing.
You yourself said that for those people for whom elections were haram, now it is halal. You said that that irked a number of people who said that here we are trying to come. We had been demonized. We wanted to be part of the elections, but we were demonized by the NC and PDP, and that's why we didn't.
How did NC and PDP demonize them?
To say that they are separatists, militants, terrorists.
We never said this. We never fed them an agenda. We didn't give them slogans. We didn't ask them to actively boycott elections. Come on, you can't rewrite history. The least you can do is own up to it. The fact is that there were organizations here that actively campaigned to stop people from coming out to vote. Can we deny that? A lot of those leaders are still alive today, who the moment elections were announced, the first thing they did was issue a statement saying that this election must be boycotted because elections achieve nothing. Our goal is an independent Jammu and Kashmir.
So the narrative of the young lot who are now taking part in the election is that it was the NC and the PDP which used to back-end these boycott calls so that you have a low electoral turnout, and low electoral turnout would mean either the NCP or the PDP wins the election every time.
How? I mean, we won seats with high turnout. I mean, low turnout, a handful of seats, particularly in Srinagar and areas like that, yes. But let's look at North Kashmir. Always a respectable, healthy turnout. Areas around Srinagar, in Budgam, in Ganderbal, a healthy turnout. Still, National Conference won. Okay, last parliament election, you had by far the healthiest turnout.
Which is why
we lost one,
yeah,
but we won two. We won two. Those elections weren't boycotted.
I'm talking about the previous elections.
No, but then by the logic you're using, we should have lost all 3 seats in parliament.
Okay.
We should have.
But you're not happy with the result, obviously, in the 2024 elections.
Who's happy? I mean, point out one person to me who, after losing an election, says, "Oh, great, I'm glad I lost." Obviously, nobody's happy losing. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask about the alliance that came about between you and the Congress. Was it difficult? Did you have to compromise as far as the seats are concerned?
Well, look, all alliances are a compromise. We were preparing and had prepared candidates for all seats. I'm not sure whether Congress had done the same, but I'm assuming they would have done. We have obviously surrendered seats that we had people ready for, that we believed we were in a good position to, I won't go as far as to say to win, but at least put up a really good fight. But yes, in any seat sharing, you have to surrender seats, and we did.
Okay. There are some seats where it seems to be like a friendly contest kind of a situation. Why that? Why not
we couldn't
pull
agree.
out?
We couldn't agree.
Okay.
But the alliance, having an alliance, was too important to let 5 or 6 seats jeopardize the whole thing. And therefore, look, we could have ended up with a Madhya Pradesh type situation where the Congress just went completely alone. Because they couldn't agree on 6 or 7 seats to the Samajwadi Party, etc., etc. But that would have been futile.
Is there a meeting of minds as far as an agenda is concerned, a common agenda in a post-poll situation where if you and the Congress comes to power, are you together on the same page?
Look, a post-poll agenda is always worked out post-poll. So you don't expect either the National Conference or the Congress to start diluting its manifesto before the first vote has been cast. So obviously, the National Conference, our candidates, will go out and fight on our manifesto. We don't expect the Congress to fight on ours. And similarly, the Congress will go out with their commitments and promises. They won't own ours. Post-poll arrangement will obviously depend on post-poll scenario.
Because when you are campaigning, you're talking about local issues, you're talking about well, not the state, the UT issues now. Whereas when Rahul Gandhi campaigned, he made it seem like a little bit of a national issue. Because he said...
Look, he's a national party. He will talk about national issues. He has representation all the way to the east and the west, all the way down to the south.
Kerala, yeah.
Okay, in probably soon, his sister will be fighting a parliamentary election from Kerala. The be-all and end-all of my political existence ends at Lakhanpur. The moment you cross into Punjab, I have no locus standi. So I have no reason to talk about issues that go beyond Jammu and Kashmir.
What he said was that in one of his speeches, he said that Humne Raja ko hataya and the BJP has brought a king and he has his subjects. So the contracts, the work, everything is being given out to Bahar ke log. Is that how you see it too?
He's not wrong. He is not wrong. You'd be hard pressed to go into offices today and find people in important positions who you can actually talk to, who understand you, who you understand, who know the geography of Jammu and Kashmir. Contracts are given to people from outside. Businesses are sought to be handed over to people from outside. You're selling off prized assets of yours for reasons that I don't understand.
What assets?
The Centaur Hotel, for one, is being given to an industrialist from Bombay. You're looking to get rid of the club in Pahalgam. You're looking to get rid of JKTDC huts in Pahalgam. And all of this is being rushed through so that you can try and do it before an elected government comes into office. You were trying to rush through the lithium mining so that you could probably keep one of your friends happy before an elected government comes here. Contracts for toll collection on highways. Nobody is from here. Mining of sand from rivers. Largely outsiders. Look, it's not without reason. Look, I mean, again, this narrative was sought to be created that 370 was something that Kashmiris loved and Jammuites hated. It's not without reason that the BJP's vote share in Jammu shrunk drastically in this parliament election. The margins of victory for both candidates in Jammu and Udhampur are half of what they were in the election in 2014. If 370 was a Kashmir-specific issue that Jammu was happy to see the back of, you should have seen margins in Jammu jump in favor of the BJP. But you haven't, because the narrative that has sought to be created around 370 was false. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir have not benefited from it being written down.
And Jammu, you feel that this time is going to be the Congress which will score more than the BJP?
I'd like to think so. I know for a fact that the Congress will do better than a lot of people expect them to do. Look, there's a lot of simmering anger in Jammu. On an issue as simple as the Darbar move, people are unhappy. You basically crippled the economy of Jammu when you shut down the Darbar move. Jammu economy depended a lot on government employees coming from Kashmir in the winter. They spent a lot of money there. They hired accommodation. Boomed. You talk about tourism. How much of that tourism actually goes to Jammu? Almost nothing. Because the train takes yatris directly to Katra. The yatris who land by air come straight from the airport, get into their car, go to Katra, get into a helicopter, fly up to Mata, do darshan and come back. Jammu is crying for some sort of economic sustenance, which they used to get from the Darbar move. They don't.
What would you like to do differently then?
I would like to reverse a lot of these things that were done.
Such as?
Such as the Darbar move to start with, for Jammu at least. For Kashmir, we need stronger domicile laws. We need domicile laws that at least bring us at par with other parts of the country. Today we have weaker domicile laws than our own neighbor, Himachal. Try and do what you are able to do in Jammu and Kashmir in Himachal today. You won't be able to.
But nobody can come and buy up land, agriculture land in
Of course they
Jammu
can.
No.
Of course they can.
In Kashmir,
Our domicile laws are the weakest in the country today.
This is what was said when Article 370 would be taken away, where Dr. Abdullah said that यहाँ पर Gaza की स्थिति हो जाएगी. That BJP, that he compared the situation and he said there will be settlements out here, just like it's there, and like Israeli settlements in the occupied areas. That's what's going to be happening out here. But 2 years have gone by. Not even the Pandits have returned. Forget about others returning.
Yeah.
So nobody's come.
Well, not yet.
So then why are you so scared that
We're
outsiders will come?
But I'm actually glad that you've now, in the course of trying to sort of catch us in what we've said, rendered one of the biggest claims of the BJP hollow, which was 370 was the reason for the Pandits leaving from here, and that if 370 is removed, Kashmiri Pandits will come back. Now you yourself have said, 2 years later, in fact, if anything, more have left.
Yeah, so
nobody has come back.
Nobody has.
Yeah.
So what was the fear about anyway?
It's a genuine fear because lands are being given away. Government lands are being given away to people who don't.
Who? It's people, there are many women who married non-Kashmiris who went and bought land that I know of. They said they were not allowed to buy land. They are Kashmiris, born Kashmiris.
No, I have no
married.
problem with that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. It is a move to settle people here. And the voter lists show you people who do not belong to Jammu and Kashmir who are now buying land and settling down here.
Why would anybody want to? Because of the fear of this, that they will not have any rights. It could go back to the situation where they didn't. Why even the
Look,
Kashmir
nobody is saying that people should not have rights. We are saying we should have the first right over our own land, over our own water, over our own rivers, over our own resources. What is wrong in that? If you give the first right to people in other states, why not here? Let's make a very simple comparison.
So who has
let's make a very simple comparison.
Right.
Are you in a position to buy land in Ladakh today?
No.
You're not.
Yeah.
Why?
Because of the protected area. So
right.
same thing here.
So why? No, you are. You can buy land here. You can buy land in Jammu and Kashmir today, but you cannot buy land in Ladakh. We were born of the same territory. We were split from the same state. We had the same protection of 370 removed from us. Why is it that today, Smita Prakash cannot go to Ladakh and buy land to settle? But if today you were to go to a dealer and identify a plot of land and put the money down, that land would be notarized and transferred to you.
Similarly, Omar Abdullah can buy in Gurgaon. Omar Abdullah can buy. So you are a Kashmiri, you can buy land anywhere in the country, right? Other than the protected areas, which is you can't buy in Nagaland if you go, you can't buy in Himachal. So why? Yeah.
So if
you want that.
Look, if it is one rule for the entire country, then don't have protected areas, no? And why should we not be protected then?
Okay, so don't have protected areas would also mean don't have special status.
So don't then, but then don't have it for anybody. How do you explain just taking it away from us? Ultimately, what you gave to them was also a sovereign commitment, whether in the form of 371, ABC, etc. Why take it away from us?
So, as far as I recall, that whether it is the Northeast, some states in the Northeast, it was to preserve the balance of culture,
So do we not deserve to have our culture protected?
हाँ तो फिर the same can be फिर of Kerala.
तो करिए, किसने रोका आपको? कहने का मतलब मेरा सिर्फ इतना ही है कि if you are giving protected areas and special status, then why did you feel the need to take away ours?
Okay,
either look, when you say one country, one rule, you can buy land in Gurgaon, you can buy land here, then it should be the same rule for everybody. But if you have areas of protected status for cultural reasons or whatever reasons, then explain to me why we did not deserve the same if it was given to us at the time of accession.
So you were in government, na, Umar Saab? Why didn't you do it when you were there?
We didn't take it away, you took it away from us. We were not in government when it was taken away from us. All that was done to us was done without the permission of the assembly. You split Jammu and Kashmir into two parts and made us into a union territory. Who was asked? Who was consulted? What exercise did you do to determine whether the people support this or not? None. Even Parliament barely discussed it.
For everything that happened to Kashmir, people would, if it was unfair, people went out on the roads, they protested, they complained. But how come for this, there were no street protests?
Did you let anybody out?
They did come out.
Who came out?
When they wanted to.
You hardly let anybody out. Who did you let out? This place was a prison for months on end.
We were talking about the period when people came out on the streets and didn't come out in the streets. Earlier, when the stone pelters would come out, choti si choti baat pe they would come out, and sometimes not even for a reason.
यहाँ निकलने कहाँ दिया लोगों को? The kind of restriction, I don't know whether you were able to visit at that time. You were.
I came just before that.
And did you see a very normal?
No, obviously I didn't. There is no normal in Srinagar. At least.
There isn't, no?
Yeah, there's never been a normal. This is the.
Well, chaliye, then what was 370 about? 370 was about normalizing. But now, if there is no normal, then what was it about?
What you're seeing now, do you think this is normal or this is a new normal?
How is this any different to pre-89? Other than the fact that we have no 370. So, I mean, this is the problem. When I ask that ultimately what was 370 about? Because if it was about bringing us at par with the rest of the country, you haven't. You still have sort of areas of special status. You only took ours away. And I'm sorry, again, I mean the government of India took ours away. Okay, so leave that aside. It wasn't about restoring democracy because the government of India has kept this place as a totally undemocratic, central-ruled protectorate for the last 5-6 years. So it wasn't about that. It wasn't about governance and development because we've seen none. It wasn't about Kashmiri Pandits coming back because in your own question you've said that nobody has come back in the last 2 years.
They are not
They're not. And then, so it wasn't about normalizing because, again, Kashmir is not normal. So then what was 370 about?
So in your manifesto you talk about bringing back the Kashmiri Pandits with keeping their dignity or something. That's the term that you use. How do you plan to do that?
By doing what we started doing with Dr. Manmohan Singh's government.
Which is?
Encouraging them to come back by taking care of their economic needs and their security needs.
Putting them in camps?
No, absolutely not. There is a reason why that accommodation is called transit accommodation. It is transitory in nature. You come there, you stay for a while, you settle down with your job, and then you find place to stay. And a lot of Kashmiri Pandits actually moved on from transitory accommodation. They actually moved into areas and started staying.
Imagine that they couldn't find it, they couldn't find the strength to trust an LG appointed by a BJP government. Would they trust?
Look, I don't expect them to trust my word. I would expect them to trust our deeds. If we are able to create a sense of security that we had done when they started coming here and picking up these jobs and working, I believe we can reverse some of the sort of setbacks that we've had in recent years.
You know, I want to come to something which is a hot topic these days, which is the IC-814, the movie which was the series which has come on Netflix, and there's a lot of conversation which is happening back and forth on this, whether the depiction which has happened in the series is correct or not. In that, there's a small portion in which your father is protesting and saying that I don't want to release the terrorists, and I don't, especially Latram, he said, ki usko to nahi chhodna and things. And then Mr. Dullat, who was the raw chief at that time, he said, he went on Veer's show and he said that this happened. I went to talk to Dr. Saab and he refused and he said, I will resign. Then he says, I went with Dr. Saab to the governor, and I think it was Gary Saxena then, and he went to the governor and said that I want to quit. And then they said, okay, fine. And he said that we got the scotch out and then we talked about it and said that, look, there is no option. We have our citizens in the aircraft. Your father did say that the state would pay a heavy price for it.
This is the second time my father was forced to release people.
With Rubaya Saeed.
Exactly. And the families of the hijack victims, they used the Rubaya Saeed incident as the benchmark. And rightly so. They said, when you could release terrorists for a home minister's daughter, is our family not precious? Why is it only she is precious to the country? Then if she is precious to you, then our family is precious to us. So we set a benchmark that had to be followed.
You were not in India when the Rubaya Saeed incident happened. You were in America.
No, I was. I think I was in Bombay.
Weren't you in America at that time?
No, no, I was in Bombay.
Okay,
I was in college in Bombay.
In college in Bombay. When you look back at the decisions that your dad took at that stage as Chief Minister, do you think he had an option?
I think Government of India closed those options. I think Government of India had an option. I think Government of India at the Rubeya Said kidnapping time had an option of not negotiating with terrorists. They chose to negotiate. After that, once you've done it once, then you have to do it again.
Okay. When it came to the IC 814, then also when your father objected to it, similar kind of situations happened when you were Chief Minister, when not a hijacking, but there were several instances where militants were caught, they were put in jail. There were times when hangings happened of one, of that. I can't say Afzal Guru happened in your time. You faced the blowback, or your state faces the blowback, and you are.
See, my unfortunate thing was that the J&K government had nothing to do with Afzal Guru's execution. Otherwise, you would have had to do it with the permission of the state government, which I can tell you in no uncertain terms would not have been forthcoming.
Why?
It wouldn't have. We wouldn't have done it. I don't believe that any purpose was served by executing him. I don't.
Do you believe in capital punishment?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Because I don't believe in the infallibility of the system of the courts. And evidence has shown us time and time again that may not be in India, but in places where you have executed people and then found that you were wrong.
In your manifesto, you've talked about releasing political prisoners. Can you tell me who you mean in this?
Those who have been unfairly detained over the last few years.
Your opponents say that some of them were put in by your administration. They're still languishing there.
Well, then why weren't they freed?
That's what I want to know.
Well, they will be.
And these will include the OGWs also? Do you feel that they are
Look, don't get into specifics. That's for an elected government to do. I think there's a distinction that will be drawn between political prisoners, OGWs, people who've been involved in severe and serious incidents of violence, and a lot of others who've just been jailed because they put a like on a Facebook post. There are any number of people who today are facing the brunt of the administration simply because they've expressed a view on social media.
Okay. Let me go back to the period when you were Chief Minister, when it was 10 years ago. It really seems just the other day, but there's so much that has happened in the state since then. 10 years ago, when that stone pelting, that was more than 10 years ago, I think 2010, 2011, when the stone pelting incidents happened and the crackdown upon them. When you look back at that time, do you think that you did something wrong, or do you feel that you could have done something better?
Any situation that is dealt with that results in people dying clearly could have and should have been handled better. But sadly, what we were dealing with was unexpected in both its intensity and its spread. What is unfortunate, what I feel bad about, is that the lessons we learned and put into place so that we ensured that it wasn't repeated during the term of my government and for the first 2 years of the BJP government, unfortunately were undone in 2016.
What happened in 2016 which you feel that was undone?
Well, clearly the lessons that we learned in 2010 weren't utilized, and that's why we had another spate of deaths dealing with a law and order situation.
But you remember during your time there was the shutdown calls, there was the calendar which used to come out, there was Gilani Saab who had his own agenda in place. You were dealing with a Hurriyat which was still muscular at that stage. Then came the era where they were all put in behind bars, and slowly and surely the shutdowns are over, the calendar is over, the Hurriyat is defanged. If you were to come in as Chief Minister, it would certainly be an easier tenure as compared to what it was, right?
Well, let's not assume anything. I'm not even going to assume Chief Ministership is an inevitable outcome. We are right now fighting assembly elections. We have no idea what sort of mandate the people will give.
Whoever comes in as Chief Minister.
Whoever comes.
Right. Isn't it an easier security situation in this so-called Naya Kashmir as compared to what was the Purana Kashmir?
Well, actually, in some respects, it's a tougher security situation.
Why?
Because you opened up a whole new front in Jammu. Jammu was entirely peaceful when I left office. And conveniently, people forget all about that. You've actually created the government of India has created a real mess for the incoming government to deal with the security situation in Jammu today. Whether it is Kathua, Samba, Jammu, Riyasi, Udhampur, Rajouri, Poonch, Doda. You tell me which area isn't facing terror attacks and strikes against our security forces. We've lost more than 55 army personnel in 12 months. Jammu is a huge problem for an incoming government. So, you know, the BJP likes to say that if the National Conference is elected, militancy will start again. Actually, it's the reverse. They have given birth to militancy in Jammu during their term. And an incoming government is going to have to deal with the mess that they have created.
So the narration always was that it was Pak-sponsored terrorism which
it's very convenient. Kashmir. It's always Pak-sponsored terrorism when the BJP or the central government is on the receiving end. But when it's the National Conference that has to be targeted, then suddenly it's our inability, our weak governance, our bad decisions. It's very convenient. Either it's Pak-sponsored for everybody, or then it's Pak-sponsored for none.
Sure. What I meant to say was that it was Pak-sponsored north of the Pir Panjal. Now it's Pak-sponsored south of the Pir Panjal. Is that
yes? But then why did you allow that situation to develop? It was all under control. What did you do that caused Jammu to slide backwards like this? Clearly, mistakes have been made. Gaps have been created. Your anti-terror grid has been significantly weakened. Your intelligence network has been weakened. And these are all things that will have to be put back into place. Militancy, terror attacks don't just disappear overnight. It's a slow, steady process.
So do you think that the BJP took its eyes off the ball as far as Jammu is concerned?
Clearly. I think it was a combination of two factors. One, overconfidence in terms of Jammu to ab theek hai, ab isko kuch nahi ho sakta. And secondly was Ladakh. The incursions in Ladakh meant you had to suddenly find troops. You didn't want to move troops out of Kashmir, so you moved them out of Jammu. The moment you moved them out of Jammu, you left a vacuum. And that vacuum now has created a problem for you.
So it's only the area of operation which has changed, what you're saying, for the militants?
They've shifted focus.
Okay. When I was talking about your tenure as Chief Minister, another thing that happened, which you mentioned in another podcast, was about the situation caused due to the floods and your handling of that situation, because your party got blamed or your government got blamed then for being frozen in action probably, or taking steps which were too little too late.
With hindsight, one obviously realizes that a lot of that was very convenient narrative building. Because we had an assembly election that was coming up for which the BJP had set itself ab ki bar 45 par. Otherwise, if an objective assessment had been done of how my government dealt with the floods, I would not have been crucified the way I was.
It was literally one issue a day with you in those 10 years that you were there. It was exhaustive, right? With every
no, we had good years. We had some very good years. We had incredibly peaceful, productive tourism, development years in 2011, 2012, for the most part of 2013. The first half of 2014 was great until the floods came. So no, I won't for a moment say that it was 6 years of nothing but trouble.
If you come back to power, what are you promising the people? Is it, one, of course, you're talking about restoration of statehood. Are you also talking about fighting to bring back 370?
Look, 370, the special status of Jammu and Kashmir is part of the National Conference's political ideology. So it's not something that we are going to just surrender. That said, we're also realistic enough to know that that's not something this assembly is going to do. It's not something that you're going to be able to do with this current government. You'll probably need a couple of changes of government in the center before it's something that you can even begin to address. Look, it took the BJP decades to do. We're not foolish enough to believe that we're going to undo it in 5 years. It's a long struggle, but it's an issue that we believe is important to keep alive. But it's not the be-all and end-all of our campaign. It is not the only issue on which we're fighting elections. In fact, it's important to remember that our manifesto talks about these political issues in perhaps a paragraph or two. That's it. Our entire manifesto is governance and development related. It talks about jobs. It talks about social welfare schemes. It talks about electricity, water, free education. It talks about helping people tide through this crisis of heavy prices and price increases. So there's a whole lot in our manifesto. I know it's tempting to look at just the one paragraph on the politics of Jammu and Kashmir, but that's not what our manifesto is all about.
Because even Farooq Saab said that in one of his speeches, he said 100 saal lag jayenge, shayad, to bring back.
Look, nobody has a crystal ball that can tell you that it will take you 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 years. Obviously, when he says 100 saal lagenge, he means that it's a long fight. He doesn't mean that exactly 100 saal or ek din ke baad ye ho jayega.
Because that's something the parliament.
Look, it's indicative. Yeah. I mean, it's like a metaphor. You're just saying that, look, it's a long fight, it's a long struggle. And again, I make the point. When the BJP was reduced to 2 MPs in parliament, did anybody believe that they would be in a position to do anything on 370 or the Ram Mandir? But things changed. And it took decades to reach that point.
The Congress says it's a closed chapter after the court decision.
We'll
How do you deal with that?
Because the court decision does not close the chapter.
Okay.
Because if the court decision closed the chapter, then when a 3-judge bench found in favor of 370, not once but thrice, then why wasn't it a closed issue then? If it wasn't a closed issue then it's not a closed issue now. It's a court decision. Court decisions can be changed. A 5-judge bench can be overturned by a 7-judge bench. A 7-judge bench can tomorrow be overturned by the entire bench sitting. So let's not say it's a closed issue. That said, it is not an issue that we believe is in any way, shape, size or form going to be resolved in the life of this assembly. This assembly is about giving us the assembly that we want, the state that we want, and start putting into place corrections for what was done over the last 5-6 years.
So what you are saying is exactly what Mehbooba Mufti also says. Then why didn't the Gupkar alliance work?
Well, that's something only she can answer. I didn't ask her to put candidates up in the parliament elections against the India bloc. That's a choice she consciously made. And she made that choice consciously after I had told the Congress party that, look, there is no scope in 5 seats, of which the National Conference already held 3, for any sort of seat sharing arrangement unless the Congress was willing to sacrifice one of their seats. But as long as the PDP helps the alliance, we're open to talks about seat sharing in the assembly elections. Clearly that wasn't acceptable to her. She fielded 3 candidates here and did nothing to help the alliance in the 2 seats in Jammu. So that's what it is.
Well, why did the alliance came together under very trying circumstances in Kashmir?
Yeah, but the alliance never came together as an electoral alliance. Nowhere in the Gupkar declaration.
What else is an alliance if it's not for
it's about ideology.
purposes?
It's about a common fight. It was about a fight for bigger things, which we did. Even though the PDP wasn't part of any case in the Supreme Court to overturn what was done on the 5th of August. There was sort of cooperation and a common fight that was waged there.
So another person who fought the election against you, when we interviewed him, he said that BJP keeps calling this as Gupkar gang, and every time they demonize the Gupkar alliance, it increases their stature. I wish they would say that about me and it would increase my stature too.
Sorry, who was this?
Sajjad.
What can I say? Look, stature is not given by, it's not a gift bestowed on anybody by the BJP or the media or anybody. You get what the people give you. Now it's nobody's fault, least of all the BJPs or the national conferences. In fact, if anything, the BJP did him a huge favor. Had the BJP not transferred migrant votes to him, he would have lost his deposit in this election. He saved his deposit because the BJP engineered about 7,000 migrant votes for him, which is surprising because given his track record of being part and parcel of the whole movement that caused Kashmiri Pandits to leave here right in the beginning. For them to vote for him is a huge change in their outlook. But they did it, and clearly at the behest of the BJP.
Yeah, his politics emerged from the Hurriyat because of his father.
I mean, his father was instrumental in
creating the Hurriyat.
In not just the Hurriyat, but in militancy starting in Jammu and Kashmir. And I mean, they've never denied it.
No, they haven't. Yes, that's true. Another factor which has happened now suddenly is the arrival of Ram Madhav in the.
That was a surprising one. I did not see that coming.
And for the first time, Omar, you and Satyapal Malik are on the same page.
I'm never on the same page as Satyapal Malik.
Okay.
It would be impossible for me to be on the same page as Satyapal Malik.
If I was to see a fax machine
no matter all the nice things he may say, I don't think any of us can ever forget that it is his signature that was instrumental with what happened to us in 2019. Now he can claim that he had no idea that the Home Minister sent him the papers that very morning and said, "Inko daskat karo." Are you that much of a rubber stamp? You should have quit. You should have had the courage of your convictions to quit. You should have been like B.K. Nehru. When Indira Gandhi asked B.K. Nehru to engineer the dismissal of my government in '84, he said no, even though he was Indira Gandhi's relative. He said, "I will not do it." And she sacked him and replaced him with Jagmohan. So we have had governors who've had the courage of their convictions. We've had Governor N.N. Vora, who had the courage of his convictions, and many others. Satyapal Malik could have had the courage of his convictions and said, "मैं ये नहीं करूँगा. बाकी आप मुझसे जो भी कराएं, मैं ये नहीं करूँगा." But he did it. So I will never be on the same page as Satyapal Malik.
He's the one who's saying that Ram Madhav has been sent out here with the definite purpose of defeating you.
Obviously, the BJP wants to defeat us, and I'm glad they do. I would be worried if the BJP wanted us to win.
No, but the idea, the manner is to set up independent candidates.
They have the money, they have the muscle, they have the administration, they have the agencies. They can do it.
Those very agencies used to be supportive of you at one point of time.
Really?
Weren't they?
I don't know. You tell me.
Because every time that one heard was that the agencies feel that here are the Abdullahs who always speak and have taken oath on the Indian constitution compared to the others.
We did, but we did nobody a favor. We did it out of our conviction. We did it because we truly believed that the decision Jammu and Kashmir made in 1947 was the right one. And that what would flow in Jammu and Kashmir would flow from the spirit of the constitution and the promises made to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I still believe that to be true, in spite of what was done to us in 2019. We never did anybody a favor. Koi ehsan nahi tha. But the fact is that these very same agencies then used that to detain me in 2019. My PSA warrant said what? That I brought people out to vote against the boycott calls of the Hurriyat. So you punished me for effectively taking a stand against Pakistan and its boycott calls. So well done.
What was that like when you were in detention?
How
many months were there?
8 plus.
8+ months. I saw the interviews that you did after that. It was a complete. Firstly, when you came out after detention,
yeah, a lot of people didn't recognize
with the beard and all. Ye ho kya gaya hai? Like he looks like he's just had some kind of initiation, a religious initiation. Are we going to see the other one, the sneakers and jeans and shirt guy carrying his own bag again?
I still carry my own bag. I still wear jeans. Yeah.
You still go for a jog?
I still do.
You still do that, okay. But what happened then? What was the change that happened to you?
I don't think it's possible to quantify it, but obviously the person who came out.
When you came out, I saw some of your interviews and you seemed a little bitter as compared to
I still am. I still am. Look, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? I think the only difference is for most people here, they keep that bitterness under the surface. They don't express it for fear of what will happen. I'm a bit more moophat. You get what I mean.
Because you kept saying I'm not the same person.
I'm not.
Changed.
Look, who can be? I mean, other than leave aside the detention, the fact that a country can go back on sovereign commitments made to its people is something that I will never be able to come to terms with. These were not the promises of an individual or a political party. They were the sovereign commitments of the Union of India with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which facilitated accession. Jammu and Kashmir, without that, would not have been a part of the Union of India. We were the only Muslim majority territory that acceded to India. But clearly that was forgotten. And this whole thing about it being temporary, I mean, that's, chalo, leave it now. We won't get into that argument. But that's a discussion for another day.
Your granddad had been imprisoned for several years after that. When he came out, do you recollect having conversations in your family?
I was 5 or 6 when all that ended. What I meant was,
do you recollect any conversations in your family where they talked about that kind of detention and the effect it had on your family?
Well, obviously it had a deep effect on my grandmother, because for the longest time her husband was out, as in away.
Yeah.
She was the one who had to sort of not only guide the family but also help the party along. It would have obviously had an impact on my father and his siblings, because for the longest time their father wasn't around. One of the reasons why my father has 2 dates of birth is because my grandfather was in jail when he had to fill his forms, I guess for his matriculation exam. And the uncle just gave a date because my grandfather was not there to tell people what day my father was born. So there's all sorts of stuff that happened.
He was put in prison by the Congress government. You were put in prison by the BJP government. The Abdullahs...
Yeah, there's a huge difference. Yeah, my grandfather was away for years on end. I spent barely 8 months.
8 months, right. There's this picture which
my sister
tweeted. Can you explain what was happening out here? The arrival of a little bit of facial hair on you.
Yeah, this was...
How old were you?
This must have been 87, 86, 87. So I was 16, 17.
And your sisters are next to you?
Yeah, well,
no.
One of my sister, my mom.
Who's on your right?
On my right. My right is the sister who's closest to me in age. Then my mom.
That is, which is?
Safia.
Safia.
The one who treated it.
Huh.
Then the 2 girls standing in front of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi and Sonia ji are my 2 younger sisters. And then of course there's Rahul, Priyanka and my dad.
And your 2 younger sisters?
Hina, who is standing in front of Rajiv ji, and Sara, who is being held by Mrs. Gandhi.
Okay. What did you guys do? Did you guys...
Actually, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi came to Srinagar by road. Probably the last time a Prime Minister came.
From where?
From Jammu.
Okay.
He was driving, I suppose he flew into Jammu and then had his vehicles there, and he came by the National Highway to Srinagar that winter. The idea was to go up to Gulmarg and have lunch. But it snowed so heavily that the snow cutters couldn't clear a road all the way up to Gulmarg. So we ended up having to stop in Tangmarg to have lunch, which of course we were bitterly disappointed by because we were looking forward to Gulmarg. So this photograph was taken in Tangmarg after lunch, just outside the guest house where we ate. And I was thrilled on this particular day because I love vehicles of any shape, size or form.
Was it your first time that you met with...
No, I'd met him before. I'd met him before, but I was fascinated with that Jeep of his.
That's the one the King of Jordan gave him.
The brown rust-colored Jeep, which I absolutely loved.
He drove in that Jeep to cast the vote for the last time.
Probably,
He came
I
in
remember
with
seeing that Jeep in Delhi, but I got to ride in that vehicle with him, with Rajiv Gandhi ji driving, my dad sitting in front, Mrs. Gandhi and my mom in the back, and me squeezed in the middle. In the middle. And I mean, that was my day. The fact that not only had I seen the vehicle up close, but actually got to sit in it was huge.
So did your dad, as in childhood, did your dad drag you to all political...
No, very few. I was up in boarding school.
In Sanaa?
I went for a handful of functions in between, but very rarely.
Okay.
I remember a few with my grandfather, particularly Eid prayers, stuff like that. I remember things like Christmas in the army, Northern Command in Udhampur. And I remember we had recently returned from England, so for us Christmas was Father Christmas and the reindeers. And in this case, because in Udhampur you couldn't find reindeer, so Father Christmas came down the mountain on a donkey.
Okay.
And we found that particularly fascinating.
Very odd.
But and I remember that because my cousin was petrified of Father Christmas, so howled. But these are strange things that one remembers.
Do you take your children for these kind of meetings?
My kids are now old enough to make their own decisions, but they do help out.
They help out. Are they helping in your campaign?
They will. They've made a start.
Okay, before I wind up, I have to ask you about this, which made a lot of social media, especially the right-wing handles. They were talking about when the American diplomats came to meet you and met with others. They were talking about how the Americans want to now make inroads into the political system out here again, all over again.
Who allowed them to come? Government of India. No diplomats, no foreign media people are able to visit Jammu and Kashmir without the express permission of the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Home, in consultation with agencies here and the government of Jammu and Kashmir. So any meeting that I had with this team from the US Embassy was cleared at the highest level in the government of India. no conversation was had with them about the sort of what I think would be the result in the elections or how I see the elections going. Obviously, we talked about Jammu and Kashmir, about the situation, we talked about the wider Indian context, but that was it. In fact, I myself was surprised that they got permission to meet me, because they came last year around the same time, and other than Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, they weren't, and maybe a handful of the Delhi-backed parties, they weren't able to meet anybody.
But those who have long memories of Kashmir know about the American influence in Kashmir. Either Hurriyat
I'm not worried about the American influence as much as the Pakistani influence. Pakistan has had more influence here than America.
But Pakistan wouldn't have the guts to do what they did if they didn't have the blessings of America, right?
In which case, what are we doing with such friendly relations with the Americans? Why don't we blacklist them as well? No, seriously, come on. If the Americans are so detrimental to our national interest, then our national interest must trump all interest, right? So then we should stop hugging the President of the United States of America. We should stop looking for their adulation. We should stop being so proud of the fact that we address their Congress.
Omar, so then there has to be some pragmatism as far as
exactly. So then what is wrong with them coming here and meeting us? It's pragmatic.
Right. Oh, okay.
It's pragmatic.
All right. At any point of time, would you have preferred to be in the Lok Sabha or in state? If you had a choice.
I always have a choice. I always have a choice. Ultimately, whoever fights an election does it out of their own choice. Nobody can hold my hand and get me to sign a piece of paper. So if I'm fighting an assembly election, I'm doing it by choice. Now, I don't even know if I had won Baramulla, because now it's hypothetical. If I had won Baramulla, would I not be fighting the assembly elections? I don't know. I might still have fought them.
Okay. Now you're fighting, lastly, you're fighting from two areas. Everybody wants to know this, and I certainly am totally confused. Is Dr. Saab retired? Is he chairman emeritus of
No, he's the president of the party. He signs everybody's mandates. He's our star.
Your style is
he's our star campaigner. Nobody in Jammu and Kashmir for sure, and very few politicians in the rest of the country connect with the crowd or with people the way he does. So where he leads, we follow.
Okay. So is it Omar's writ or is it Dr. Saab's writ in the...
It's the party's writ.
Right.
What we do by consultation. We take views from everybody. Ultimately, then all those views are put up to the president, as in any political party.
And finally,
the president decides.
If you win, who's going to be chief minister?
The legislative party will decide.
Don't give me such a political answer.
No, but that is the truth.
There is no difference between you and Akhilesh or anybody else who gives me this answer. Can you just, for once, just tell me straight face?
Straight face.
That me.
My face is entirely straight. And I am telling you that my clock stops at 5 p.m. 8th of October, which is when results will come out. Any conversations of post that period will be had post that period. I have had my sort of fingers burnt in Baramulla by assuming that I know what is going to happen. I'm not making that mistake again. I am not taking anything for granted in this election. And therefore, any conversations about a post-result scenario will be had post-results.
You almost sound like the BJP when they said 400 par and came to their senses after the election results.
Which is why you haven't ever heard me put a number. Have I said 50 par, 60 par, 70 par, 80 par? Never. I have not put a number. National Conference and our alliance group are fighting to win these elections. We want to win as many seats as possible. But I'm not going to be foolish enough to put a number on it and then exceed that number. Exceed that number.
I like the new optimism in Omar Abdullah.
I've always been optimistic.
All right. On that note, thank you very much and all the very best to you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thanks.
For exclusive and insightful videos, subscribe to our new channel, ABP Live Premium.